Hello, welcome to my channel, The Wolf and Her Books. Thank you so much for watching. Today we are going to go over my 24 and 24 TBR. I know, I procrastinated. This is a long time coming, like it's already February, but I'm still trying to wrap my mind around literally the end of 2023 and that we're already in 2024. Yeah, I've just been basically trying to just take January slow and reset, but I'm here now to share with you this TBR, mostly of backlist books that I've been meaning to get to for a while now, and I just want to make a priority this year. Now, I'm gonna do this by categories. I'm starting off with not science fiction, literary fiction classics, then science fiction and horror, and then ending with fantasy. So without further ado, sorry, I just moved my books over because I just didn't like that there was empty space and I was gonna be staring at it while I was filming. So all right, now we're actually starting. All right, number one on my list is Paralandra by C.S. Lewis, who is the author of Narnia. This is the second book in the, what is the series called? Out of the Silent Planet trilogy. It's a classic sci-fi. I read the first one, it kind of went over my head because it's kind of like really philosophical and maybe slightly existential. And then of course the author's background is in Christianity, or he's a Catholic, I don't remember, or he was a Catholic, I don't remember. But that being said, I just kind of find his ways of exploring deep things about existence really fascinating, and a lot of people who read this trilogy say the second one is the best one, and it blew their minds. So I'm very curious about how this will go. And apparently there's dragons on here. I didn't even know that. I just noticed that. Okay. All right. The second book is one that everyone and their moms knows about and has seen everywhere, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Obviously, it's dark academia. What more do I need to tell you? It is interesting to see the dark academia phenomenon kind of, you know, spread, and see how many books are inspired by this book. So I just feel like The Secret History is really quintessential reading for me. I did read If We Were Villains. I've read Babel. I've read Ninth House. I've read My Dark Vanessa, so I already have read a bunch of other dark academia. I just have not gotten to this yet because I'm a little intimidated and it is a tiny bit dense, but I'm confident that it'll still be an enjoyable experience. And I've heard nothing but good things about this book. Okay, third on my list is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I am so excited to read this. I've been meaning to read this for years. It's been on my list 4 or 5 years, I think, but I'm super excited that I have this Lit Joy Crate edition. They did a set with, it was like gothic. Yeah, it was like this gothic themed classic set. So the other book was Dracula and the, you know, collection of Edgar Allan Poe. And I did not think they were going to do this set again because it sold out, but they did, and I jumped on it, and I am so happy I did because this is the most beautiful cover. And so I'm excited to read this book for the first time with all these beautiful you know, illustrations. Well, there's not, some things are illustrated inside. There's not a lot of illustrations inside, but yeah, it's still just gorgeous edition, one of my favorite editions ever. And I also heard there's a little bit of dark academia in this too. Okay. Fourth on my list, I'm probably gonna lose count at one point, is Our Wives Under the Sea. This could have maybe been put in the horror category, but it is mostly literary fiction. I will admit, I already read this, it's February, so I've gotten a couple of these, or a few of these, off my list, but this book, the writing is so immersive and beautiful. It does have an ambiguous ending, which I didn't mind too much. The horror elements are super subtle. It's like, but I just kind of felt the undertones of emotions. I'm not going to go into what this book is about. I do know I picked this up because Cindy on her channel with Cindy. She used to be Read with Cindy, but yeah, with Cindy. She loves this book. I think it was one of her favorite books a couple years ago, so I had to pick this up. It's really, really short. I tabbed some things, but the prose was just gorgeous, and I'm still kind of sitting on it, so I don't really have a rating because, to be honest, literary fiction isn't my thing. But yeah, this was a great experience. I went right through it. It made me sit and think, which is what I'm trying to do more this year, not just binge my books and fly through books. So yeah, very, very good experience with this. Next, number 5, if I'm still counting correctly, I have Beartown by Frederick Bachman. This book is so popular. This author is so popular, but the first book, as I was saying, this author is very popular and very beloved. I did read Anxious People. It was a little bit too quirky for my taste, and I was like, is this a comedy? Is this a mystery? Is this like supposed to be sad? Like, I was a bit confused by it, but I still wanted to read Beartown because I think this is probably his most popular book. I did start a few chapters of it, but I wasn't getting into it because it's a sports themed book and it's centered around the small town hockey. I know there's a reason why there's a sports theme in it. It has to do with the tragedy that I know unfolds in the story. So I am going to switch to audiobook because I felt like the first few chapters are a little too repetitive. I believe there's multiple points of view, and everyone is connected to the sport and the tragedy in question. I don't know when that tragedy will happen, but I know it's all interconnected, but I was kind of losing interest because I just don't want to hear about sports. I'm not a sports person, not a sports girly at all. But I think once we get over that, you know, first, you know, early intro part of the story that's a little slow, I think I'm gonna still enjoy this. I got this from a used bookstore years ago for $5, so if I don't like it, not too much of a loss. Okay, and then next, now I have officially lost count because I got distracted, but next is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Seven. I've heard phenomenal things about the story. I've heard questionable things about the story in this book and this author. I've heard mixed things. I'm still looking forward to it. I didn't know anything about the story or the author when I picked it up years ago, or when it first came out. It was complete cover buy, as you can see. All I know is that it's about 2 sick people. I think they fall in love. Something sad happens, which might be, hopefully it's not going to be that predictable. Oh, and there's obviously video game culture in this. So I'm very interested to see how this author kind of ties all of that together. All right. The next few books I'm going to talk about, I don't own physically, so I have my phone right here, so I remember which ones that aren't here with me. These other books are with me in spirit. Anyways, the next book on this list is There There by Tommy Orange, who is an Indigenous author, and I have heard nothing but great things about this book, and I've been making it my goal to read more books by Indigenous authors in general, and so far I have not been disappointed. I'm hoping to make a video of books by Indigenous authors a little bit later in the year. But yeah, this one, if you haven't heard of this book, it's a literary fiction book, and it follows 13 characters from Native communities, and I think most of the story is set in Oakland, California, at least so far. To be honest, I have already started this book this month, so I've gotten to have a taste of this book, and I cannot believe I have slept on this author for so long because the writing is so poetic and immersive, and it's not necessarily like lyrical prose is what I'm saying, but his writing is so captivating. I feel immediately pulled into the story of all these characters. I've only met 3 or 4 of the characters so far. I'm a little nervous about the fact that there's 13 characters we're following, but so far I haven't gotten lost or anything like that. I'm just enjoying the ride of a story. We're just only getting to know, like, I've only gotten the smallest snapshot of some of these characters, so I'm ready to get into the meat of the story. And weirdly enough, not weirdly, but coincidentally, I don't know, his follow-up to the story, I don't know if it's a direct sequel, but his follow-up story is releasing this year. I forget what it's called. Like, it's completely going over my head. So I guess I have something to look forward to when I finish this book. But yeah, I just already feel this emotional connection with the story. It is so beautifully done, and it's reminding me why I need to read more literary fiction, because it's my least read genre. Not because I hate it, but because I have to be in a mindset for it, and I'm such a mood reader, which is why doing 24 and 24 this year is going to be a challenge for me, because the reason why I keep getting, you know, backlogged on my TBR is because I'm just going with the flow and reading whatever I want when the mood strikes or whatever, or, you know, I feel FOMO when a popular release comes out, so that I'm not reading the books I already own or are on my radar. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to reading this, or continue reading there. Next on my list is Open Water. It follows 2 Black British characters in South London, and it's supposed to be a romance, but I know that there is a tragedy and they're going to be torn apart in some way. I believe it's less than 200 pages, so I know it'll be like a quick read. Not a quick easy read, but a quick read. I've heard so many great things about this book as well. It is also literary fiction. I don't know anything about this plot, again, except for it follows these 2 characters, fall in love, and there's some kind of connection between them, and then sad things happen. That's all I know about it. Next, I am going to read for this, you know, 24 and 24 reading goal is On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I discovered this author last year. I read his poetry collection called Time is a Mother. Oh my gosh, that poetry collection blew me away like no other. It was so beautiful. I found myself writing in the margins and taking notes and trying to understand this author's thought process. I looked into the author and I found out that this author is a Vietnamese, sorry, I probably said that wrong, Vietnamese, yeah, there we go, queer immigrant author, and a lot of the story, not the story, but a lot of the collection of his poetry was influenced by his mother's passing, so this collection had a lot of grief, and him unpacking and processing those feelings, and also unpacking things about his, you know, background and heritage. It was just amazing. So I had to read another well-known story by this author. Next on my list is Here and Now and Then by a Chinese author. It is a book about time travel, which is why it was on my, it's part of why it was on my radar, because it had a little bit of a speculative element. I think it's more literary fiction, but I love when there's kind of like a genre bending thing where it's like, oh, it's like really pretty writing, but it also tackles things in this really unique way, and it seems like a really unique story. All I know is he's trying to save his daughter, he's living a secret life. This book came on my radar like 5 years ago. I just never got to it. Again, literary fiction, I have to be in the right mood for it, but I told myself, nope, this is the year, I'm gonna read it. And that's all I can say, because I don't know that much more about it. Anyway, next on my list is Night Tiger. It is a Chinese historical fiction, and I did pick this up a couple times in the last few years. I just wasn't in the frame of mind for it. And it's also magical realism, and magical realism, when done right and following the genre, I don't want to say trope, or guidelines, but the actual magical realism, not just modern fantasy, but actual magical realism, uses a specific literary style and tactic. And so sometimes it can be difficult to kind of like immerse into the story because it's very, I can't describe it. But the point is that I was very interested in the story. I just had to be in the right frame of mind in it because I felt like I had to like really use all of my intellectual capacity. But I do know that it is about this character named Ren, and when his master dies, his last request to Ren is to find his severed finger and reunite it with his body. I think it's set in 1930s. I don't remember. But yeah, it's historical fiction. So sometime a long time ago is when this story is set. And I believe there's also a second point of view character. But I don't remember because again, I started it and stopped. But this is the year I'm going to finally read this book. So yeah, and then I will go ahead and start the fantasy portion of this video. Sorry, I lied. We're actually doing sci-fi and horror, or horror and sci-fi, whichever order, whatever. Anyways, so next on my list, Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I've read a couple of books, maybe only one by her. I've only read one book by this author. Anyway, this though has been on my TBR since it's basically come out. Actually, her other book, the Alice in Wonderland retelling, I can't remember the name of it, has also been on my TBR for a long time, but I want to read this one because it seems really interesting. I'm not big on fairy tale retellings anymore, but I feel like this will have a good twist on it. It is obviously a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, and it is set in a post-apocalyptic sort of wasteland, and the main character has a prosthetic leg, and that's all I know about it. But it looks really good, and it'll be really interesting to see where the author takes the story. The next book on my TBR is The Luminous Dead. This was really popular the author, The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. This was really popular when it came out and everyone was talking about it, so I was really curious about it, and the setup seems really interesting. I know that it's basically some sort of underground expedition in caves, and then something goes wrong and she gets stuck for a long time. I think she's even questioning the motivations of being sent on this expedition. Yeah, so it's supposed to be really claustrophobic. The cover says it's ghostly and mysterious. This is another book that I just have not been in the right frame of mind for, but I'm hoping to get into the story this year. I have read the author's other two works in a couple of her other works. One was a short story and one was a full-length book, and I did not enjoy either of them. So I'm hoping, and I feel really bad. I don't know, I just feel bad that I didn't, but I'm really hoping third time's the charm, as they say, I guess. But yeah, I am hoping for some good things from this. Next two I have are Project Hail Mary and Dune. These are really both popular stories, obviously, so I don't really feel like I need to go much into it. I got interested in Dune simply because of the movie. I want to read this before the movie. This I picked up because I think I'll enjoy this more than The Martian, and even people who said they don't like sci-fi like this book. So hopefully these are both promising, and I will be ready to tackle these beasts because these babies are huge. Let's try to put this there. All right, now we're getting to the fantasy portion of this video. All right, so next on the list, Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I've read Circe and I actually really liked that book. I gave that 4 stars. I think I teared up. It was really good. I loved the writing, and yeah, everyone I know has read this book and everyone says this book has made them cry. I don't know if it'll make me cry now that I know it has made people cry, you know what I mean? It's kind of a spoiler. Not really, it's not a spoiler, but when you know the emotions that other people felt, it's almost like you're expecting it. So I don't know if I will feel those feelings that other people have had from this story, but I do feel like if anything, it'll be a fun ride, and the writing will be beautiful and atmospheric, just like Circe. Okay, next on the list is Vita Nostra, another sort of dark academia story. I started reading this book already. I started reading this book this month as well. I'm not going to pronounce authors' names because they're Russian. This book came out quite a while ago. It was, well, obviously got translated. I think the original came out before 2013 and then got translated in 2013, or it got translated in 2018. I don't know. The point is, it is an old book. Not that old, but it's pretty old compared to a lot of the other books I'm reading. It's just definitely not a recent release. I've read a little over the first 100 pages of this book. I think I'll fly through it despite it being 400 pages, but I am struggling with it so far. I feel like I'm cheating by mentioning anything about the books that I've already read. Like, I feel like I should wait till the end of the year and tell you how I ended up feeling about these books. Not right now, not in real time. So I'm not going to tell you anything else, but I have gotten through a significant part of the book, and my first impressions, I guess you'll all have to see. You'll all have to see, because yeah, I will try not to tell you everything about this book right away. And then we have another book on the TBR that is really popular. I probably won't even have to give you all the details because it is just by an author who is just so well known, and I have not read anything by this author ever yet. And that book is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I told myself I was never going to read a Brandon Sanderson book because I don't even know where to begin. I was overwhelmed. I looked up his bibliography and like, which world should I pick? Like, I just didn't know where to start. But this book is supposed to be a standalone. I've heard that there may be a sequel to this, but for the purpose of this video, we're saying it's a standalone. And I thought that's pretty accessible, that's attainable, that's less overwhelming than trying to read one of the 50 series he has written. I even own Skyward, his YA book, by the same author. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It feels not too daunting. I haven't read traditional like high fantasy in a while. I do read like the Poppy War, which I'm gonna get to in a second, and the Priory, but I wouldn't say they're like traditional fantasy because they sort of have a twist on the normal fantasy tropes. So I still do read high fantasy, just haven't read, you know, the old school, you know, bros of fantasy lately, but I do want to get into this. Alright, so I have two books that aren't with me physically, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about those, which are Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is the author of Coraline, Stardust. A lot of his stories like Good Omens have been adapted for the screen, and I have just in the most recent years completely fallen head over heels for these stories. I never know what I'm gonna get. I never know what I'm gonna expect. I like that he's a bit subversive with his fantasy stories. But yeah, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman is an urban fantasy set in London, and I believe it's set in the 1990s because that's when it's written. And there's also this magical London below. I wouldn't say it's portal fantasy, but there is sort of this like genre bending element to it, and there's kind of this like upside down kind of thing to the world. Again, I don't know. because I like to go into my books blind. And then I have a book called, that I don't have with me, but it's on my Kindle, called A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And I feel like, I'm sure everyone knows about this book, so I'm gonna go through it quickly, but I believe it's loosely Twilight inspired. I know it's a dark academia and there might be a witch and a vampire who fall in love. I'm not sure. It's gotten its own show. I forget which streaming service it's on or whatever it is. But I am curious about this book because I know it's like this like Twilight for adults and it's a bit darker and maybe steamy. I don't know. It looks really interesting and haunting and atmospheric, and I know the first chapter opens up with someone in the library, so I don't know, I'm just gonna be here for the vibes. And I believe this book is 600 pages, so obviously I have to be really motivated and the headspace to read a long book like that. But I am really curious, and I know this came out ages ago, but I'm just ready to go ahead and check it out. All right. Next, we have a Master of Jinn, I believe it's pronounced, by P. Djeli Clark. This is the first full-length novel I will be reading from this author, because I believe he has about 2 or 3 stories that are prequel short stories set in this world. Allow me to kind of geek out for a bit because I love this author's books so much. I think he is so underrated, criminally underrated. Like, I'm trying not to talk about all the other books I've read by this author, how well written they are, and the worlds and the stories and how transported I feel. I'm trying not to turn this into a entire video about this author. Maybe I will make a separate video on his books, but this is the first full-length novel in that world, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so excited. All I know is it's set in Cairo and it's steampunk, it's historical, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be an adventure, it's gonna be exciting. That's all I know, and I am eager to get to this because it came out 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly, so I'm like, why have I been sitting on this book? Maybe I've just been waiting for the perfect time to read this book, but it is top of my priority this year. I'm making a priority. I'm so ready to read this. I'm literally trying so hard not to like word vomit how much I enjoy this author's stories, and I'm always excited for what he has next. All right, next we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This author, I want to say, is best known for the Trail of Lightning series. I forget what the actual series is called, but the first book in that series is Trail of Lightning. But as soon as I saw this cover, it's this blue, purple, violet color and the gold. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I have to read this author's backlist first and then read this book. So I did read some of her backlist books, which they were amazing. Another author and story I could geek out about right now, but obviously I've already been taking forever. But yeah, I don't know anything about this. This was a pure cover buy, but now I know it'll be worth my while after reading the author's other works, that she's not gonna let me down. I'm just so excited. Like, it's so beautiful. I just feel like it's going to be a feat in storytelling, and yeah, as you can see, I'm like getting really excited talking about how much I'm looking forward to reading this. Next we have the Dragon Republic. Like I was talking about earlier, I'm trying to get back into higher fantasy. As much as I claim I'm a fantasy girly, I could read more, because I still read them, just not as frequently, since a lot of them are so dense. But I'm trying to read them more frequently this year, and I am looking forward to the Dragon Republic. Yeah, I think the Poppy War came out 5 years ago, maybe longer, so I feel like I've been way behind on the series. So yeah, I really need to catch up with my high fantasy in general, but in particular, I really want to continue the series and get to the sequel. Yeah, I absolutely love The Poppy War, that first book. It was amazing. It was breathtaking. Another book I could talk on and on and on and on about, because they covered and wrote about something that I didn't even know about in history. And in case you're living under a rock, this author also wrote Yellowface, that came out last year. It was probably one of the most popular read books of last year. And they also wrote Babel, in case you're living under a rock. So yeah, this author is really, really well known. I don't really need to give you an introduction or summary. You probably have heard something about this author. And yeah, can't wait to read this one. And hopefully she doesn't hurt me too much, because I feel like I'm gonna have my heart ripped out reading this book like I did the first book. And lastly, my 24, to wrap up, my 24 books are these combined, which is the next 2 books in the Bone Season series. This actually makes 25 books, but I'm kind of combining them as my 24 for the end of the year, because I actually just read The Song Rising last month in January, and now I immediately wanted to pick up The Mask Falling. So I'm making this required reading in addition to my 24 books. But yes, technically I had 25 books in this video. So yeah, I tricked you guys. I'm really sorry. I kind of cheated. I'm sorry. Not really. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to this. But yeah, I read The Bone Season when it first came out like 10 years ago. The first 4 books have been released in the span of 10 years, and it's 7 books total. And I've been on the fence of whether I want to continue the series until they're caught up, like finish it when they're all caught up, or let myself read the books in the long stretch of time it's been taking to finish the series. But yeah, only the first 4 have come out. Hopefully number 5 comes out next year, but it's been taking a while for them to come out, so I've been pretty much taking my time reading these. So it's like, maybe I'll just read The Mask Falling next year, or when book 5 comes out. I'm not in a rush. But after I read this and gave it 5 stars, and though like this is my favorite book of the Bone Season series, like my favorite one, after I read this I was like, I have to read this one next. But yeah, the Bone Season, yeah, I love that series. So that concludes my 24 and 24. If you got this far and enjoyed this video, please leave a crescent emoji, crescent moon emoji, or a wolf emoji, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!